Lights dim, clouds gather round the scene. Forget the fitness, but a trashy dream. Ninjas lurk through neon lit debris. Shock masters rule the wasteland sea. Heroes rise from garbage heaps of steel. Projectile flickers brings a trashy dream. Ninjas lurk through neon lit debris. Shockmasters rule the wasteland sea. Heroes rise from garbage heaps of steel. Apocalypse now with a grim appeal. Trauma bound in cinema so crude. Ninja slicing through the sleeves. From best to the worst, it's a screaming thrill. Trashy cinema where the nightmares fill. The worst of the best under neon lights. Tuesday night we're fighting for our lives.
G'day and welcome back to the channel, Ginger Ninja's Movie Reviews. I'm the Ginger Ninja and these are my movie reviews. If you're new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, stopping by and checking it out. You're probably wondering what it is that we're doing here today. Well, it's Tuesday and last year I started something and it was mostly a lot of fun. It's called Trashy Tuesdays, so I'm bringing it back for 2025. Now, Trashy Tuesdays sounds bad. You know, a trashy film is usually never a good thing. However, I seem to get a lot of joy out of a lot of these films, and this one is no exception. 2019, After the Fall of New York from 1983. Now, this was directed by Sergiomartino, and I found this movie. I remember seeing the cover, back in the VHS days, but I got the idea to do this one from this book here, After the World Ends, which has been an absolute amazing book. And if you can get your hands on it, I highly recommend you do it, especially if you're into post-apocalyptic wasteland adventure movies like I am. And there is a fantastic interview with Sergiomartino in this book. It's amazing, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of the work and the things that they put into these films. And it does give you an appreciation for the work that these people do. So definitely got to give it a hand to all the cast and crew of this film. Now, look, before I get into the actual movie, it is a new year. You know, I've hit 1,000 subscribers, and I did have my 1,000 subscriber celebration live stream. So I do want to take a moment to thank all the people that turned up in the chat and my guests that were on the panel. Honestly, thank you guys so much for all your support. I truly appreciate it. Now, I know I did forget to do the giveaway. I was just having a blast. It was just so much fun, and it just completely slipped my mind. I do apologize, but I will be doing the giveaway in the very near future, so keep your eye out for that. Now, back to the movie. So, the film stars, and I will probably pronounce these names wrong, Michael Sopwith, Valentine Monia, Romano Puppo, Edmund Purdom, Anna Kanakis, Sergei Feuillard, hopefully I pronounced that right, and George Eastman. George Eastman is a name I've seen before. I've seen in a whole host of different post-apocalyptic films, other films as well. So it's probably a name you may recognize if you're into this genre of film. Now, the plot. After a nuclear war, society breaks down into two groups, the evil Euraks and the rebel Federation. A mercenary named Parsifal is hired by the Federation to infiltrate New York City, which is controlled by the Euraks, to rescue the only fertile woman left on Earth. Yeah. I just want to say something. I actually think this movie may have influenced another movie or several movies that came out later on. I think late 80s, early 90s, like Hell Comes to Frogtown. Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, and that is a fun one too. And it's also a trashy film, so maybe I'll review it in the future. Anyway, I got to say, if you're a fan of post-apocalyptic B-movie mayhem, this is a cinematic time capsule that delivers exactly what you'd expect and more. it takes Escape from New York, Mad Max, and a little bit of the Planet of the Apes, and it tosses in some Italian B movie flair, and then it cranks the absurdity meter up to 11. And the result is a gloriously campy post-apocalyptic romp that's equal parts derivative and entertaining. This Italian sci-fi film proudly wears its low budget, influences on its sleeve. It's obviously taking a lot from Escape from New York, but it throws in some other types of films as well. There's a smorgasbord of dystopian tropes, cheesiness, and it possesses a certain charm, and it, by blending a gritty campiness and ambitious world building, which is something that these films do really well. They really do pull you into that world. And while it lacks the polish and budget of its Hollywood counterparts, it's more than made up by its sheer ambition, creativity, and that charmingly unhinged energy that you only find in, 80s exploitation cinema. So strap yourselves in and let's get ready to explore New York in 2019. So diving into the cast, and look, Michael Sopqui, and again, I hopefully am pronouncing that correctly, stars as Parsifal, our main lead, and he delivers a solid performance as a gruff yet somewhat likable anti-hero. He's it's not the most nuanced acting, but he imbues the character with a certain level of charisma to carry the narrative through its more outlandish moments. Most of the supporting characters, including Bronx, Ratchet, etc., they're very exaggerated characters, and they are very one-dimensional. And while some of the performances do inject energy into the film, others feel campy or just uninspired and somewhat robotic. And if you've seen this one, you'll know that reference. It's almost like a cyborg, one would say. Another example is, another good example is the Euraks commander, Anya. I think that's how they pronounce her name. Played by Anna Kanakis. She just oozes menace as a character every time she's on the screen. But the overall villains of the piece, the Euraks, are very generic, and they do lack depth. I did like the design of them. And this is what I meant when I was going through some of the quick points at the start. They're kind of dressed like knights in a way, which kind of throws back to medieval times when they're riding on horseback and they've got the face plates and stuff like that. So it was really interesting, but there was just no level of depth to the actual villains as such. Even the Pan-American Confederacy, the Federation, they're very bland, and the main character there is very reminiscent of, I think it was, I'm forgetting his name, from Escape from New York, where he gets Snake and he gives Snake the offer to go in. I think was it Lee Van Cleef? Hopefully I'm correct there. I may be mistaking it with Escape from LA. No, it was Escape from New York. Sorry, tangent there, but there's not a lot to them. They had a lot more. You can see where the film has taken its liberties from, Escape from New York, especially with that character and with Parsifal. And look, despite the somewhat colourful cast of main characters, they do lack a lot of depth, and that makes it hard to draw yourself into them. Their motivations are very thinly sketched, and the emotional moments don't land as effectively as they should, mainly because this movie isn't about characters or character depth. It's about just being completely batshit insane. Now on to the directing and the writing, and again, I got to point out this book, fantastic interview, really shined a light on a lot of the work that Martino and his team did within the film. And what they did was stretching their limited budget to create a world that feels grimy, dangerous, and lived in. The dialogue is often stilted and overly expository. with characters spelling out their motivations and plot points with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. But again, we're not there for the characters or their development. The world that's developed in the film is amazing. And I'll touch on a lot more of some of the world building stuff in the effects as well. But there are a few points where the pacing is just uneven. The first half is packed with action and world building, like I mentioned, but the second half drags as the film tries to wrap up a overly convoluted plot because it brings in all these other characters along the way and it's got to deal with them as well. The movie is filled with odd details that raise more questions than they answer. You know, this is a post-apocalyptic society that's been decimated by nuclear war, but they have laser cannons, like literal massive cannons that shoot lasers. There's underground societies, there's ape men, there's rat eaters, there's, you know, and funnily enough, the ape man played by George Eastman, Big Ape, I think he was called, he's actually seems to be the smartest person in the room. But it's these quirks that give the film its unique personality, and for that, I am all for it. You know, for fans of cult cinema, the cheesy one-liners and the melodramatic exchanges are a delight. You know, they add more to the film's charm and make it less of a guilty pleasure and just more of a pleasure. You know, even by B-movie standards, the story is a mismatch of cliches. Like I said, it borrows heavily from a lot of other movies. And you know, I'm reading the interview. Like he states that he didn't actually see movies like Mad Max. He saw the trailers and he may have taken inspiration from them, but he didn't see the actual movie. So it's amazing how much they align some of these, you know, movies. But it feels like the writers were kind of making things up as they went along rather than having a solid storyline. But I mean, let's be honest, this is kind of what we've come to expect and appreciate from these kind of films. Now, moving on to the effects. And the effects are one of my favorite parts to these films because there are certain parts in these films where the effects are just done so well. Yeah, I'm not a fan of CGI. I see where it has its place, and some CGI is fantastic, but you can't go past good practical effects. And this film, the opening scene, stunning. And I'll touch on that in a moment, but there are some things in this which just haven't aged well, and that's in particular the matte paintings and the explosions. They just don't look as good. You know, they're fun in a kitschy way, but they'll likely pull modern viewers out of the experience. But before we get to that, we do get this fantastic opening scene. The model of a decimated New York City is so well done, and it really sets a tone. It looks like it is a wasteland. It's full of crumbling buildings. You know, you've got this haunting narrative, this narration that's happening over the top of it. You've got the wind blowing through the city streets. You can hear it. And that's one thing that doesn't actually get acknowledged enough is sound effects. They help set the tone for any film. In this, you've got that, but you also have this lone trumpet player in the background, and then it goes into focus on him. And it's just a hauntingly effective opening scene. Then we move on to our introduction of Parsifal, our hero, with a car chase in the wasteland. And the wasteland itself is, well, the car chase is filmed in what looks like an abandoned quarry, but then it goes into the wasteland, and we see a few effects in there with cyborg arms, which the arm is detached and there's like, you know, AA batteries in there. I thought that was an interesting touch to it. I guess cyborgs run their parts separately, maybe, on AA batteries. I don't know, but the introduction of Parsifal in this car chase scene is probably the best way to describe it because it does really set the tone of him being an anti-hero and being a warrior. But the action isn't great. Like, the car chase looks good. The fight scenes, not so much. There's a certain chaotic energy to these fight scenes and the way they're shot. And it kind of makes it feel like it could go out of control at any second. There's a scene where he kicks someone off the edge. Now you can tell it's quite far from the edge, but when the dummy falls over, you can clearly see it's a dummy and it does not look good. The physical effects that are used on characters within the movie, the mutants. The mutants are, they just look like people with like burns, or they've got like greenish tinges to molted skin parts on their face. They do look good. The apes, ape men, George Eastman's character, Big Ape, look absolutely ridiculous, but in a fun way. Rat people, they look effective because their clothes are all torn, they look dirty, but the blood effects, now we've seen blood effects in a lot of different movies, and they range from, paint being, pouring out of wounds, like a thick paint, to a massive, like take Tenebrae for instance, blood splattering across the wall, like white wall, bright red blood. Dawn of the Dead is another one where it's just like this paint-like blood that's showing up when the zombie takes a bite out of someone. This blood here looks cheap and nasty. It kind of looks like a tomato sauce or a pasta sauce. It looks chunky. In one particular scene where one of the characters is impaled, you see the blood that's on the wound and the blood that comes in, it just looks chunky. It does not look good. But it's a little thing. And overall, I didn't mind the special effects in this one. Now on to rewatchability. And look, this is a wildly entertaining slice of Italian exploitation cinema. It's the kind of movie that's best enjoyed with a group of friends, some popcorn, and just be ready to laugh at its absurdity and appreciate its ambition. If you love over-the-top post-apocalyptic dystopian adventures and don't mind a bit of camp, this is a must-watch. And it's definitely one that's worth a rewatch. Yeah, I remember seeing the cover of this, back on VHS, like I said, and a lot of these do come from the era where I was going to a video store and looking at all these movies and getting them and watching them and just being in awe of them. So yeah, definitely worth a rewatch. So final verdict, and look, as you can probably tell, I enjoyed this film a lot. This is a kind of film that thrives on its own audacity, and it revels in campy dialogue, over-the-top action, and a patchwork of sci-fi influences. Like I said, if you're a fan of post-apocalyptic cinema or just enjoy cheesy 80s exploitation films, this is a must-watch. It's a time capsule of an era when filmmakers weren't afraid to really swing for the fences, and even if their resources were limited, it's not trying to be a profound or polished film. It's just trying to be fun, and it succeeds in spades. Overall, for a score, I would give 2019 After the Fall of New York a 7 out of 10. So there you have it. That is my review of 2019 After the Fall of New York. Have you seen this film? If you have, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. And if you haven't, are you going to go check it out now? I definitely recommend you check it out. Like I said, if you're a fan of these type of films, it's a must watch. So do check it out. Let me know what you thought of it. As for what's going on next, obviously we do have Franchise Fridays coming back. And you guys voted for it, and it's Tremors. So yeah, I'll be looking at all the films in the Tremors franchise, and yeah. Not going to spoil it for you what I think of these films, because you're going to have to tune in to find out. Anyway, look, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that thumbs up. It'd be much appreciated. And if you've made it through all my ramblings about this movie, please do hit that subscribe button if you're not already, and hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I do release a new review. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.
Like Big Bushy, he's a ninja on the prowl, smacking on pretenders with a